people with reasonable skills get great new opportunities due to globalization. What I was saying about job training and education for the poor also applies to the middle class. They have to keep their skills up to date.
The nation sits down with Professor Eric S. Maskin, Nobel Laureate in Economics, for a discussion that focuses on the relationship between globalization and inequality and how we can improve the gap.
So you're in Thailand for the Japan ASEAN Bridges event, and you will be giving out lectures to young minds and also at the Bank of Thailand, right?
That's right.
I have seen a number of your speeches, lectures. You talk a lot about globalization and inequality.
That's right.
It has been many years, and we are still on the same subject. That means not much have been changed, or there's anything positive that we can look forward to?
I think so. You're right that I've been talking about it for a long time, and the reason I've been talking about it is that it's still a problem that is with us. Inequality is still present, and in fact, in some countries, it's growing. So there's work that still has to be done to solve the inequality problem. Nevertheless, there are places where progress has been made, and I'm happy to say that actually Thailand is, so far as I can tell, is a place where there has been improvement.
So we're not talking just about the number, right? I mean, statistically, no.
Well, so economists measure the degree of inequality, the gap between rich and poor, by something called the Gini coefficient. And actually, Thailand has one of the highest degrees of inequality in the world. That's not a good thing, but that Gini coefficient has actually fallen. Not dramatically, I would say, but significantly. In recent years. So that's a move in the right direction, I would say.
So what do you think we have been doing kind of right that's shrinking the gap?
So I am not an expert on the Thai economy, but I think it's pretty clear that one reason for this improvement is that education and skill training has improved, so that people working in traditional industries especially are now learning more up-to-date, more modern skills which enable them to earn a better income than was possible a decade ago or so. Another statistic about Thailand, which I find extremely encouraging, is that the number of people below the poverty line has fallen dramatically in just about 30 years. So it was the case not all that long ago that more than half of the population was in poverty in Thailand. And that figure has dropped to below 10%. So very significant improvement. And this has mostly to do with the fact that people are now able to get jobs which pull them out of poverty. And this has to do with education and the development of skills. So
one of the things you prepared to talk about is the relationship between inequality and globalization. And if people have read or listened to some of your lectures, you would tell them the reason that you think globalization is part to blame for inequality?
I do. Let me say first that I am not opposed to globalization at all, because globalization in general has been a very powerful force for economic improvements. Thailand has improved dramatically as a result of globalization. China is now the second largest economy in the world, whereas 40 years ago it was one of the poorest countries in the world, and that difference is almost entirely attributable to globalization. So globalization has been a very good thing on average for increasing a country's average prosperity. The problem with globalization is that the benefits have been very unequally distributed.
Right.
So people, and this comes back to skills. People with reasonable skills get great new opportunities due to globalization. For example, if you speak English, there's a whole world of jobs that are open to you as a result of globalization that would not be available if you didn't speak English. So you don't have to have incredibly complicated skills in order to benefit from globalization. But there are many people who don't have skills, and they have been left behind. They have not benefited from globalization. So the moderately and highly skilled people see their incomes go up. The unskilled people see their incomes stay the same.
While everything gets more expensive.
While everything gets more expensive. The gap between the skilled and the unskilled, as far as income goes, increases. I'm afraid is an important consequence of globalization. The answer is not to stop globalization, though. It's to attack the problem of inequality directly.
Yes, and from what you said, I would assume education is the answer.
Yes, education of a particular kind, education which is directed towards skill acquisition, giving people practical skills that they can use to improve their incomes.
So if we focus on ASEAN region, which some of us emerging economy, some of us developing economy, do you see the challenge in this region pretty much similar of inequality and economic crisis? Or some people wouldn't call it crisis, but I think
I think it's too strong to call it a crisis. But yes, I think basically all of the ASEAN countries have been having to deal with income inequality, and Thailand probably more than most, because Thailand's level of inequality is higher than most of its neighbors. However, as I was suggesting, it has, the degree of inequality has been decreasing. And that's not true, for example, in China, just the opposite. In China, it's been growing.
So what do you think is the most challenging aspect of these issues?
The most challenging aspect is that education and job training are expensive.
Right.
And someone has to pay for them. And a country has to figure out how those investments in skill training are going to happen. Typically, the workers themselves, unskilled workers themselves, can't afford to pay for their own educations. They're too poor for that. So we can't expect them to do it. But we also can't rely on employers to do it. if I'm an unskilled worker and you're an employer, yes, you could train me to do your job, and then I would be able to do it. But the problem is that once you have paid for my job training, I don't have to work for you.
Right.
I could go to work for your competitor, and in which case your investment in me is lost.
Right.
And so employers are going to hesitate before they're willing to make an investment in training unskilled workers, because those investments are not secure. And so we can't expect employers to solve the problem either. So that leaves the question, who is going to pay for the investment? And I think that the answer has to be government.
Right.
What government must do is to find a way to either train workers directly, and one way they can do that is subsidizing workers so that they can go back to school and learn skills. But another way is for government to give employers more incentive
To train the
to
workers.
train the workers. They can do that
Right.
by giving tax breaks to companies, or by giving companies subsidies according to how many workers they train. But one way or another, I think it's essential that government gets heavily involved in these training investments, because they're not going to happen without government. They're not going to happen automatically.
Then it's involved another part of this equation, which is the policymakers. So we have to hope that we get the policymakers that know what they're doing, or sincere about what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, this is always a problem with government, making sure that the leaders
Right.
are competent and also well-intentioned. I must say that since I've been studying the problem of inequality, which has been for close to 15 years now, I have seen many innovative and effective government programs develop in different parts of the world. And so there is now a much bigger stock of knowledge about how to fight inequality than there was 15 years ago, and that's cause for reassurance, I think.
So we just need the governments that really serious about fixing this issue.
Right, and I'm confident that if government is serious, they can deal with the problem. The problem is definitely solvable. It's not an impossible problem to reduce inequality. We know how to do it. It's a matter of political will, actually doing it.
We have been talking a lot of inequality, and when we talk about inequality, we will think about the poor and the lower class of people. Should we be worried too about the middle class? Like, if they get trapped, they cannot move up, and some of them actually falling down?
Oh, absolutely. The middle class is the bedrock of a society.
Getting sandwiched.
You can't have a successful modern economy without a robust middle class. Even the middle class has to keep up with the times. We live in a world with very rapid technological change, and that means that the nature of jobs which are right for technology, the current technology, is changing all the time. So even people who are doing reasonably well, middle class people, need to revise their skills.
Right.
They can't just sit there and expect that they will continue to prosper. What I was saying about job training and education for the poor also applies to the middle class. They have to keep their skills up to date.
Well, thank you very much for your time today. I think, yes, we have to go back to unskilled training. No,
Yeah.
not just unskilled training, skilled training for
Middle class
middle
too.
class too,
Yeah.
just to
Right.
make sure that everybody
Keeps up.
keeps up.
Because of the rapid pace with which the economy is changing.